And probably the biggest compliment that I've ever received, I actually recently posted on LinkedIn a person that had texted me about their own journey in leadership and how I had an impact on it. And I was very grateful for that. But that person once gave me feedback during my review and said, you have this innate ability to process information, give people that information, but give it to them when they're best able to absorb it. And I had never heard something like that. I was like, me? But it's true. It's your ability to reach people where they're best able to absorb the information that you're about to give. Sometimes that's not right away. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be comfortable and self-assured in leadership to know that.
Welcome to 99 Humans. My name is Jeff Lakusta, curious coach and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, striving to understand how little things generate big impact.
And I'm Nadia, Carta, tech executive and lifestyle coach with a mission to transform lives and corporations by kindling hearts to generate a zeal for life.
Each week, we investigate stories about the human side of leadership to re-energize your spirit and help you become a stronger leader.
Because the reality is that leadership is messy, goofy, challenging, but always human.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Let's dive in.
Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of 99 Humans. I'm pretty excited today because Jeff and I are joined by an incredible industry leader. I have the luxury to work with him, but I want to start with him directly and say, welcome, Morris, to 99 Humans.
Thank you. And I am wearing the Whitney shirt in honor of Women's History Month today. So shout out to all of the great, phenomenal women leaders in our industry as well.
Oh, thank you for being an ally. So this is the first time you're meeting Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Morris, we both live in Atlanta, as we know. How long have you lived in the city? Because I'm a pretty fresh transplant, just a couple years here now.
Yeah, I've lived here probably 7-8 years.
Okay.
It did take a couple of years to switch from being a city boy in New York to suburban guy walking his 12-pound multi-poo around the neighborhood. Like, hi, neighbors. How's it going?
It's funny you say that. People always ask. So we moved from San Francisco,
Mhm.
and folks are always asking, how's the move? San Francisco to Atlanta. Wow, it must be really different.
Yeah.
And I actually say the exact same thing. I'm like, the biggest change is going from city to suburban, not from city to city. I mean, Atlanta is an incredible big city, but we chose not to live in downtown. And so that's a much bigger change for us.
Yeah, the biggest thing is noise. If you ever try to have a phone call walking in Manhattan, it's impossible. So, like, you definitely hear the distinct quietness in the suburbs here in Atlanta.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, so Morris, I know a lot of things about you because I've been reading all of your articles and you are so incredible. I don't even know where to begin, but I'm going to throw one of those curveballs that I'm sure you will appreciate it.
Yeah.
I want you to tell us how you keep your daily routines, because I want to start with that, which, when you told me, I was mind blown. And second, we'd love to hear what are you up to at this moment in time.
Yeah. So the quick answer and secret sauce is to wake up at 4 a.m. every day. 5 a.m. Saturdays and Sundays is okay, but 4 a.m. on Sundays. I've always been a bit of a gym rat, and I'm best in the morning to work out. It's impossible for me to work out during lunch or in the evening. I've never had that type of energy. I've always been a morning gym person, and you have your morning people that are there, and you say hi to everybody, etc. But from the hours of 4 to I'd say about 7:30 are mine exclusively. The world is asleep. My family's asleep. And so that is time that, of course, I'm probably listening to a podcast or something industry wide here and there, but that's really the time that I have for myself. And I choose to use it by going to the gym and really getting my heart rate up and getting active. That's where my best thinking occurs. And then I kick off my day after that.
How did you learn that? Morris, I always find, like, I've heard Miracle Morning. I think that's one of the popular versions of Wake Up at 4. But this I assume isn't something you've been doing for your whole life. So I loved that moment of like, I think I need to wake up at 4. What did that look like?
Yeah. I've probably been doing it, maybe not 4, but I've been doing early rising sessions probably since I was 23, 24 years old.
Wow.
It just, I realized very quickly that I think really, really clear and come up with, I think, brilliant ideas first thing in the morning while everyone else is asleep. So, yeah, I don't know that there was a aha moment. It was just I started doing it and I started noticing a difference in my energy levels, most specifically, and then took it from there. How it kind of got to 4 a.m. is last year I actually started a challenge. So I challenged myself about mid-December to first week of March. So that was about 10 weeks, where I called it the Zero Dark Detox. When I'm in professional settings, I'll say fast, but I'll call it Zero Dark Detox. And essentially, there's a lot of no's. So no alcohol, no fast food, gym 6 days a week, wake up at 4 a.m. Every day for the most part, no social media outside of LinkedIn. And then I revisited that challenge this year and actually added a couple of weeks, and it turned into 12 weeks this year. And then I had some people join me. So that's, I got a little bit of a crew going. So next year we'll probably do 14 weeks, and I can tell you, you just feel amazing during it. The first 2 weeks are hard. I'm not gonna lie to you, but once you get into that routine, it becomes fairly easy. But to Nadia, to your earlier point about the commute from, because I don't, the audience might not be aware, but I actually live in 2 different cities. I live and reside in Atlanta, and I work in New York, primarily Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that adds a whole nother wrinkle to my routine.
Right, because people oftentimes they find so many excuses. Oh, I'm traveling. Oh, I mean, I'll say I find excuses. I was 3 days in Mexico City and I was so dead at 10 p.m. I literally had my gym, my exercising outfits, and I didn't exercise once. To be very honest, even if I was in the hotel, I was like so tired
Mhm.
and literally I needed the hours of sleep. So one of the things that really impressed me about you, Morris, is your ability to keep your discipline and to keep yourself accountable to the plan that you set up despite all that you have going on in your life. I mean, you're a father, you have a fairly new job and the commute. So, I mean, I don't know what you did say what the secret is, but I'm just in awe. I want to be like you.
Yeah, someone mentioned something to me the other day that I didn't realize. I'm from New York. I actually grew up with just a single mom in the Bronx. But I went to high school in Brooklyn, at Brooklyn Technical High School, Brooklyn Tech, for the Tech Nights out there. And that was a 1 hour commute each way. And so 10 hours of my week at 13 years old was spent on the train. And someone, when I mentioned I had lived in the Bronx and was commuting to Brooklyn Tech, that person said, "Oh, that prepared you for your life today." I never thought of it that way, but I suppose so.
Morris, it sounds like a pretty interesting setup to commute like this.
Yeah.
In some ways, I can see the challenges that we're kind of talking about and how you navigate that. But in others, you're creating what sounds like designing your dream life. You want to be in Atlanta,
Yeah.
and the job and the work is in New York.
Hmm.
How do you go about doing that? Because I do think there's a lot of us out there who are thinking about the intentional parts that we want to maintain or aspire to create. And here you are, you've started a new job.
Hmm.
Was this at all a part of negotiations or conversations about what it would look like? And if so, anything that you can share with us in terms of how do you make such a huge part of this puzzle come together in the way that you want?
Yeah, it's a lot of discipline. I have a very forgiving family, so when I'm here, it's daddy duty 24/7. I'm running to school and picking him up, Dallas, that is, his golf lessons, baseball. I'm super dad on the weekends for the most part. I do carve out some time for me on Sunday to golf. Golfing weather is about to hit Atlanta, so I'm excited about that. Uh,
Yesterday, that was the first day.
yeah,
I'm like, you could do whatever you want, and now it's thunderstorms. So yeah.
I was in New York yesterday, so I missed
Oh,
the
bummer.
opportunity. So yeah, it's just an incredible amount of discipline. Although my wife shares the same perks of a adult, I'm actually just turned diamond. So I probably could only do it by myself because I'm like Superman when it comes through when I go through the airport. I have digital ID, so I go to the digital ID, and now I've seen these people every single week, so they know who I am. And so drop my bags off, go through the digital ID lounge line, go to the Sky Lounge, get something to eat, get on the plane. I try to sleep on the plane as much as possible, unless I have some pressing items to do, but trying to fit in those pockets of time where you can rest and reset is hugely important. So the first couple of weeks of doing it was difficult because I used to do it every other week. My good friend Delphine actually brought me on at Wavemaker when she was there, and it was not originally a part of the negotiation. I opened my big mouth and said, "Hey, if you ever need me in New York, I'm 5 hours door to door. I can make it happen." In my head, thinking I'd probably be every other week, maybe once a month or something like that, and then it came down like, yeah, we're going to need you there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that came from Sharp, who's now the Group M CEO. And I said, all right, let's give it a go. And so it's been working out, I think, thus far.
Which is amazing. Two things I want to recognize. They often say closed mouth don't get fed. Mm-hmm. So you had an intention, you voiced it over. And
it was part of my pitch for the job. It was part of my pitch. I added it to my pitch. I literally stated the fact that I'm willing to fly in every week and be away from my family tells you how serious I am about this role and serious about my intentions when I'm there in New York to be present. I don't know if it helped me or not, but that was part of my pitch.
It looks like. Yeah. And then, so I love that you really advocated for yourself. And then the second thing, which also ladders up to my question, is it sets a leadership example to people. Yeah. And so how being like you are influences how you lead, and how is that received by your teams?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in my last role, when I was at Publicis, I took on a very senior leadership role. And to prepare for that role, I read pretty much all of the leadership books there are to read. But I can tell you that there was nothing that taught me more about leadership than the past 4 or 5 years going through the pandemic, social injustices, mass shootings. There was nothing in any book that I read that prepared me for that. And using the pandemic as probably the most significant example, just having or increasing my EQ several hundredfold, and understanding that really connecting with people and the people that you lead in a personal way matters. And people want to, because all leaders talk about leadership, right? So people want to feel that you're genuine, that you genuinely care about them, and they'll work their tail off for you if you do. But in learning, you do make mistakes, and I can give you a great example of that. When the pandemic first began, obviously all the offices shut down and everyone was at home. And if you recall, all of the major universities, Ivy League institutions had made their courses online free and available. So you can learn another language, you can learn another skill. And I remember early on in the pandemic, I sent an email to my team. And I said, hey, now that we're not commuting and you saved some time, here are all of these resources from all these different institutions and agencies that you can pick up a new skill. And it was so tone deaf that, I spent probably the next week after I sent that email, I was just meeting people one-on-one and finding out they had a parent passed away, their sister lost their job, they're terrified of the pandemic in general. And I was just like, that was stupid. So I sent an email the very next week, a couple of days later, and said, hey, team, I apologize. That was just a blunder on my end. You are dealing with something that we've never seen before, and we're all dealing with it together. Who am I to tell you how to spend the little time that you have and the mental capacity that you have on learning a new skill when you're just trying to, in a lot of cases, survive or deal with grief? And so that was a small thing, but and I didn't do it to get responses or anything of that nature. But the responses I got were, you get it. You get leadership. You took accountability. You thought something was a good idea. It wasn't. And you apologized for it. And that really, I think, anchored trust. And I tell people that all the time. The biggest thing for leadership for me is trusting those above you and trusting those that report into you, or building that trust rather.
That's a fantastic example, Morris. Thank you for sharing that, because I actually think we don't maybe share enough those times that we get it wrong, and then go out into our teams and proclaim that we got it wrong. You know, you got a good response. Sometimes you might not get a good response those times you get it wrong. How did you learn that? You know, to your point, everybody talks about leadership. Trust is one of those things that's in every leadership book. So you certainly would have read it. But I think you're right. There was something unique about the pandemic, and it was inspirational to Nadia and I, and kind of exploring this idea of human leadership, which I think you're describing to a T, is, hey, you're a person, I'm a person. Sometimes I make mistakes. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes. And how do we still work together? What do you know where that maybe came from? Was it comfortable for you to apologize, or was this, you know, a first step on a journey towards figuring out what that looked like?
No, I wouldn't say it was hard or difficult to apologize. You know, I make mistakes here, and I try not to, but they occur. But to not admit that you are capable of making mistakes wouldn't, I don't think, be leadership. I think when I actually really sat down with my thoughts about it, I looked back at one of the first leaders in this industry that I reported into that had a significant impact on me. And that was a gentleman by the name of Young Bean Song, who I believe in 2003 was like the Ad Age sexiest man in search. That's like or something like that.
I want to Google this.
Yeah, he's gonna kill me when this airs. But fantastic leader. He was the leader of the Atlas Institute for the Atlas ad server. It was an analytics think tank. And I remember finally getting on his team, because I was not on his team, and I saw that his ability to present and storytell and explain these very complex analytical subject matter to clients in a way that just was brilliant storytelling. I said, I have to go work for him. So I finally begged and pleaded and got on his team eventually. But the way he led, and it wasn't out of fear, and it wasn't really out of respect. It was, I didn't want to disappoint him. Disappointment was the biggest fear for me. And there was a time where he asked me to do a report or something early in my career. And to be honest, I probably half-assed it. And he took the work and he said, Morris, you're so much more than this. Like, your ability is beyond this. I want you to spend some more time with it. I was heartbroken. It was like your Star Wars guru telling you that, you know, you didn't do that good enough of a job. And so I spent all weekend revising it to the standard that I thought he would have. And then I didn't know if I was going to be fired. That was the emotions that I felt. And then that Sunday night, I sent it to him, and then he called me and said, oh, by the way, we're giving you a retention bonus to stay with us for another 2 years. And I was like, whoa. And I was like, you were holding on to that? He was like, yeah, I was holding on to that. So, you know, it's those little things, those moments, you just realize, just wow, just, you know, you don't want to disappoint someone. And for me, leadership is primarily about the daily deposits that you make into people. It's not the big town hall. It's not the quarterly QBR meeting or the monthly department meeting you might have. It's those daily interactions. Like, do I legitimately care about you? That matters. So yeah, I think that's where I got it from. And probably the biggest compliment that I've ever received, I actually recently posted on LinkedIn a person that had texted me about their own journey in leadership and how I had an impact on it. And I was very grateful for that. But that person once gave me feedback during my review and said, you have this innate ability to process information, give people that information, but give it to them when they're best able to absorb it. And I had never heard something like that. I was like, me? So, but it's true. It's your ability to reach people where they're best able to absorb the information that you're about to give. Sometimes that's not right away. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be comfortable and self-assured in leadership to know that.
I wrote this down because I love it. The daily deposit into people's and giving the information to them when they're most able to absorb it. Two
Yeah.
things I'm hearing very prominently. Number one is the importance of radical candor. Too often, leadership tends to sugarcoat feedback or not telling people what is it. Whereas in this instance, your leader, they came to you, gave it to you with love and empathy and care, and you are able to process it and put it into place and respond. And so your resilience, you absorbed it clearly. And then the second thing is, really, really appreciated this point you're making. Everyone can be amazing in doing a town hall and read from a teleprompter and get their communication team in preparing a speech or whatever that is. But when it really comes to your heart, that you are in tune with your people on a daily basis, you understand what's going on, you connect that with the external factors. And so you don't live in a vacuum, but you live in a system within another system, and you help your people connect the dots into how they are in that given moment. That's truly magic. Now, my question is, I get it that all of that is fabulous. It's a bomb, one of my bomb ones. So get prepared, you all. And apologies. You cannot respond, but here's where my head is. Do you feel appreciated for your leadership style? The leaders that you've been reporting to before, now, wherever, like, and we can do this in a way that is polite. I don't want to damage anyone, but do you feel that how you lead and how you're being a human is celebrated and acknowledged and promoted?
Yeah, Nadia, I've listened to several podcasts for the 99 Humans podcast, and you always offer up the Fifth Amendment if you don't want to answer a question. I think you did that with G, and I just laughed hysterically about it. But I will not do that. I will not take the Fifth. I came on here to be honest and give my thoughts based on my experience. The first part of your question, which is my leader, do I believe my leadership is appreciated? I was immediately going to answer yes, because I was assuming that you were going with the people that you actually lead or under your remit. It's a different question when you're talking about other leaders, because I do think that I am a different leader than others. And everyone has their own leadership style, and a lot of really great. But no, I don't. I wouldn't say that my leadership style I felt necessarily appreciated. Now, certainly appreciated by people that really matter, but like when I look at the gamut of leaders and stakeholders, probably not. A lot of leaders love to talk, which is kind of ironic for me to say that because I'm on a podcast. But they just love to talk, and I'm the type of person. If you ask me what one of my top strengths I think is observance. I'm the type of person that I am sitting in a room with a whole bunch of leaders and hearing them talk and give opinions, and I'm processing information, but I'm also trying to understand what incentivizes them. And I've always felt that as a leader, both for people that are in your remit, but also people that you report into, if you understand what incentivizes them and what their end goal truly is, in that moment I'm processing that information, I can predict what that leader is going to do or say coming out of this. But that takes time for me to be quiet and not be talking all of the time. And when I do have something to say, it's very thought out. And I like to think it feels like a mic drops when I have something to say, because I think it's very, very valuable. But no, I think I lead very differently. And I think I arrived at this position, I think, differently than perhaps other leaders. A lot of other leaders probably across this industry, fantastic new biz wins, really, really hardcore individual efforts. And I think at some point in my career, I knew that I only had so many $1 million ideas. I had a few I'm very proud of. But I got far more value out of creating a coaching tree, if you will, and creating the next leaders, because I can't be in every pitch. I can't be in every meeting. But if I can have some sort of fractional input on someone becoming a great leader and great salesperson or great agency rep or great strategist in their own right, great analytical personnel, that meant far more to me. And so I chose that leadership path. I don't know that that's true for all leaders.
Morris, I commend you, first of all, because the leadership path you're describing is one that works for your team, that works in moments like COVID and
Mm-hmm.
like we're seeing happen more and more and more. We need more leaders like you.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly you live your life intentionally. I mean, gosh, we started the podcast. You're waking up at 4 a.m. leading a pack of people who are doing what some would call insane things, with your time to design your life. So here's the question is, why not talk more? You see that that's working for a lot of other people. Why have you decided not to do that?
I wouldn't say I don't talk at all. I do. I'm very intentional about my opinions. I feel that in a lot of stops that I was at, so much time is wasted by just people wanting to hear themselves speak. There's probably ego involved to a great deal. So for me, I'm all about processing information and coming to a conclusion and resolving the problem or challenge that we're faced. But ultimately, I can't be everywhere, and so I have to intentionally create the next generation of leaders to do similar things. But I also am self-aware. We're in a cultural shift, and I think you talked about this on a few of the podcasts that I listened to, where I said this on a panel and everyone laughed, but I was very serious about it. I don't think many people want my job. I don't. I don't. I think I'm not saying this for everyone, but I think the days of how I was raised in this industry, which is, killing yourself, really, coming in sick or not. I remember where you had to produce a doctor's note if you were out more than 2 days. That was very early on in my career. But I think people, COVID, unfortunately, if there was any benefit, which there really isn't, really caused people to reflect and value their life. And so I've talked to a lot of peers and I talked to a lot of friends and people in the industry, and they don't necessarily want that responsibility that I have or that other leaders have like me. They want to come in, they have their client list, they have their deliverables, they have their status calls, and they want to go enjoy life, and that's okay. And so part of the leadership, and I think that is missing, and it can be exhausting, is you have to spend a lot of time really getting to know the people that you're leading, because you're going to have people, yeah, sure, they want to elevate into a position of leadership, but more and more I'm finding people respond well when you give them the space to really be themselves. And I always tell my team, some days you're going to wake up and you don't have it. And it's okay to take a half a day. It's okay to take a whole day if you need it. There's some days where I don't have it. Now I got to be here, but I really try to lead with emotional empathy, and I think that is not in really any leadership job description that I've come across. It might be like a bullet at the end, like lead leaders and some verbiage, but it's a huge part of my job. Huge.
I love it. As a social media consumer, so differently than you, I do spend a lot of time on Instagram. And there's this meme that is going around lately with all of my girlfriends who are singing it to each other, where there's the comparison between the Gen X manager, the millennial manager, and the Gen Z manager. I
Mhm.
encourage you all to go and look at those memes because they are hysterical. Like literally the like same situation, like someone is sick. Gen
Mhm.
X would respond, "Oh my God, you're sick. Are you sure you can't work another couple of hours?" And the millennial would say, "Oh, I'm so sorry you're sick. Can you just finish the task and then go?" Whereas Gen Z would be, "Just go take the day off and enjoy yourself or recover." So, Morris, I'm not going to ask your age. I'm going to say that I'm a millennial. but I do feel myself more of a Gen Z. So can we just all be Gen Z?
It's tough. I have to catch myself. I'm not perfect. I have to catch myself here and there that I don't want to be that, old guy walking on the grass or whatever that saying is, as far as just holding on to, the way that I was raised in this industry, which was very hardcore. And then you look back on it, and it's like, yeah, that probably wasn't the best way of leadership. But yeah, it's difficult, but you have to be able to reach people where they are. Some days they have it, some days they don't, and it's okay. But yeah, I had to flip that switch into allowing people to truly be themselves. And being a leader of analytics personnel is a unique leadership position in its own right, because by trade, analysts, data engineers, data visualization, Tableau folks, data scientists, they just want to work on their craft. And all of the other stuff, the politics and this, that, and other, and client defense and pitches and all, that's all a noise to them. They just want more, give me the vision of what we're trying to accomplish, and then let me go perform my craft. And you have to be okay with that. I stepped in a leadership position formally where I had to lead several disciplines. Now, I'm a data guy, but data engineering, not so much. And, I had to lead a few different disciplines that I didn't have, senior level experience in, but, they're under my remit for a reason. And the first thing that I did when I walked into the room with the leader of that sub-discipline in each case where it was relevant, I said, I'm not going to out data engineer you. And I'm not here to do that. I'm here to get rid of all of the noise and be a representation of your craft. And that resonated. I didn't know it would, but because they could have been like, well, then why are you leading this department? that could have been the real answer. They're like, thank you. They were like, thank you. They were like, finally, a leader that's coming in and not trying to be in a meeting and talk about this discipline or this craft when you have an expert in this craft in the meeting. And so give them the opportunity to perform their craft and represent it and get out of their way and get all of the noise out of their way. So I think that's a unique thing about analytics.
I love that. And I think that idea of kind of shielding your team from what is necessary for the business to function, but is noisy and separate from the craft. You're characterizing it so well. I'm curious how you balance, though, the kind of sharing and transparency when maybe there is a lot of noise up here. Part of me goes, yes, protect the team. And the other goes, I wonder what echoes that might be helpful for them to hear. That's something I struggle with. And another way I've heard it is the shit umbrella or the shit funnel. And somehow there's like a filter maybe that's a better version than either of those options.
Yeah, that's a really good question and a tough one. It is tough to balance. When I walked into the door at Wavemaker, my current position, the first few weeks, I was consistently asked, what's your vision for the team? And to be honest, and I told my team this, I found it annoying. It was a great question. It's a fair question. But I spent the first 90 to 100 days, maybe a little less, really obviously understanding the capabilities, the culture, et cetera, but getting to know my team. Yeah, I had one-on-ones with probably 90% of the team, and I lead over 100 analytics personnel. And it's funny because every meeting I have, they walk in with, well, these are the clients I work on, and this is my craft. And I said, whoa. This meeting, I just want to know who you are, your background story, family life, things that are important to you, what you're passionate about. We'll have plenty of time to learn about what you do at this particular company. So the vision part, I've seen visions and they just exist on a piece of paper. And it's, they're the first slide in the town hall. here's the vision. And I crafted a vision. It was very analytical, verbiage, etc. But I really told them I really preferred a mantra. And that mantra was just grow. Every day that you come in, no matter what level in this organization you are, if you do great work and you really support and are curious mostly about our client's business. So you're reading the earnings reports, you're understanding what the CMO or head leadership is talking about. You really care, and you perform great work. That will all bubble up and make my success will be predicated on that. And so if you constantly just think about just grow, how do I really continue to grow my own craft, grow myself as a person, as well as contribute to the business, we'll be fine. I'll take all of the blame, and you'll get all of the praise, and I'm comfortable doing that. And so that I guess to answer your question, it's hard to balance, but trying to really spearhead and say, I just need you to focus on delivering this because it means so much to me, is probably where I land.
I can't believe time flew. I could listen to you all day, Morris. I know we have other things to get to, for sure you do, with all going on. And so we always end our conversations with our leaders with the same question, which is, what is your word of advice for the people listening to this show today?
That's a great question. I have a lot, a lot really. I recently read a quote from the CMO of Goldman Sachs, Fiona, who's a phenomenal leader. And she, I think she was being asked, how you arrived at your position. And I believe her answer, paraphrasing, was be yourself. Like everyone is trying to, like you see Bob and he's a great leader. And then you're like, okay, I need to pattern myself after Bob. But no, we don't need more Bobs. We need more Nadias. We need more Jeffs. So it took me a long time in this industry, and I didn't touch upon this earlier, but being a person of color in this industry, it is a unimaginable weight and pressure that I felt. And so I felt like I had to be always buttoned up 100% of the time, like no mistakes, super corporate. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, I had to do a town hall at Wavemaker, and they had a fireside chat where they were going to ask me questions. They gave me the questions beforehand. I was actually very happy that your team did not provide me any questions, so this could be free flowing. They gave me the questions, and anyone that knows me, when it comes to presentations or speeches, I'm constantly rehearsing, constantly in my dreams, just constantly. And I was going over the questions, and my wife Stacy, I was going over it with her, and she was like, "Why are you being so robotic? Why are you being oh here you go, super Mr. Corporate guy?" She was like, "Just be yourself. They don't want to. They've seen that before. Just be who you are." And so, I walked in and just answered the questions just as Morris, not as a super leader or something of that nature, or what I think leadership should sound like. I just answered them like I've been through some stuff in this industry. Anyone from an underrepresented group has been through some stuff in this industry. And so, just being yourself, I would say. I growing up in the Bronx isn't easy, but I will say that it prepared me because the reality is there's nothing really in this industry that I've come across that's going to get under my skin and bother me because I've been through so much in my personal life and growing up. And so, yeah, I think just harnessing that who you are as a person, and not everyone's going to like it. Not everyone's going to be a fan of you, and that's okay. But try to find the company, the business unit, the department, the leader that closely identifies with the values that you care about and who you are as a person.
This is an amazing insight. Thank you for sharing that. And what I love about it is we get a tiny glimpse of the incredible Stacy and your wife, because what amazing advice, right? To see that there's somebody like that connected and helping in your journey in so many different facets is really a special part, I think, of the full human Morris that we're seeing here. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, except when I try to give her leadership advice, that's a whole different conversation. She's like, keep it over there.
We might have you back to talk about living in the Bronx because that's something that I wanna learn as a new immigrant to America. But if people want to connect with you, where can they find you? And if you could share, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, I guess the easiest way to reach out would be on LinkedIn. It's funny that one of the first things I do when I go to speak at schools or mentorships or things of that nature is I tell people to connect with my LinkedIn because my network should be your network. I think I've definitely come across situations where people don't want to connect or what have you because I have all these C-level connections and no, it's LinkedIn. I want my network to be yours. So I would start there because then you get access to me, from a very humble state, but you also get access to my huge, phenomenal network of people that I've connected with and had the privilege of coming across in this industry.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for
And
being with us, Morris.
I had one because you actually do close on a different question. I've heard this on other versions of this podcast, which is, can I recommend a leader that would be a phenomenal addition
Yes,
to your podcast?
please.
I
Yeah.
absolutely can. His name is Jason Dwayne Smith, my former Publicis colleague, one of my mentors and good friends. We actually went hunting together. I know hunting. I did not shoot any birds. I can't not aim for anything. But phenomenal leader, phenomenal stories. He would be a fantastic addition to this podcast.
Ah,
We will
well, that's
absolutely reach out to Jason. Thank you for that. The breadcrumbs of this has been the most fun part, honestly, to see where all the paths lead. So that's awesome.
Oh, I really love this Friday. I was a little low energy after a revenue call, and you definitely lift me up, Morris. Thank you.
Yes, yes. That's actually where you see true leadership when revenue is not where it's supposed to be.
Oh, well, I'm going to call you now for the Wavemaker stuff. Let's talk about that.
Yep.
But another time.
Yeah. Awesome.
Have a
Thank you, Morris.
wonderful weekend.
You too.
Well, Jeff, that was an incredible episode. I knew that we were in for a treat, and it definitely surpassed all of our expectations.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've been wanting to connect with Morris here in Atlanta. Now I know where to find him. 4 a.m. at the gym. No big deal.
Well, I want to hear if you do it. I mean, I'll tell you, I would not be able to do it. So I'm just going to be compassionate with myself. But I really respect it. That's the discipline that I wish I had.
I think it's an amazing skill. What I take away from that, we'll do our main takeaways from the episode, but just that discipline piece to me, again, comes back to intentionality. We don't all have to wake up at 4 a.m., but if we can be intentional about the things that we can and want to do, it makes all the difference. But yeah, kudos to Morris. That's a bar right there to aspire to someday.
100%. And I loved your spin. If anyone wants to wake up at 4 a.m., we respect that. But I'm sure everyone has different way of disciplines. In our small, we've been extremely disciplined. We published episode 61 last week. So this has been going on for 2 years almost.
I can't believe it, honestly, Nadia. It's definitely a moment of pride. Anytime you hit the zeros or the 5 episodes, I'm like, oh, it's another milestone here. Well, so Nadia, what is your main takeaway from that conversation?
Yeah, well, I loved all of I loved everything. I mean, this is some of the conversations that really warm my heart. And I mean, I took many notes, but probably I'm going to go back to the daily deposit that you do into people. And I want to read that not only for me as a leader, but for me as a human. And I've been, I have 2 kids. Lately, I've been having a lot of challenges with my 7 years old that, she's growing and she's of course fearless and all of it, but as a parent it's challenging. And I was reading this parenting book about connecting with your kids, Dr. Becky, Good Inside. And she speaks along those terms on the fact that in a family, and so as an extension also in the humanity and in the system, is all about the daily emotional pot that you build with your loved ones. So that applies to friends and also to people, so that you can have stronger bounce back when challenges arises. So if we assume that challenges will always be there, like in life, there will always be the moment that is going to be rough, there will be moments that are upsetting and frustrating. It all depends on how our happiness and joyful deposit looks like. And so I liked what Morris said, that leadership is the same. Your leadership that you build with people, it's not only a town hall and then you disappear and you forget about them, but it's about that time you ask them how they're doing, that time you inquire about their families, that time you speak about what makes them happy. So this daily, putting a coin drop by drop. So you know me, with all things I talk about is the daily sparks.
Yeah.
It's not the one in a lifetime huge effort and then you forget about it. It's the daily contribution. So that concept really, really, really sticked with me as applied into the leadership space.
I really like that concept as well. I'll actually complement that with one of the main takeaways for me was his sort of simple but powerful story of apologizing or acknowledging a mistake, going, "Hey, I did the wrong thing here." And it's funny because before we started recording, I was sharing with you a story of a leader that I work with who did a similar thing, and the amount of trust that those moments build are pretty big deposits. But what I really appreciated about Mort's story was it was kind of a small story of this, if you know what I mean. Like, there was not a colossal, no business failed, no person was impacted in a horrible, dramatic sense. It was a kind of micro moment almost of, I did this thing. I could even, of course, I think anyone listening could see, like, oh, so well intentioned. I totally understand where he was going. Missed the mark for this reason, course corrected, on with it. And I think it comes back to that daily deposits, because just like daily deposits could be a small note to say, hey, I saw you do this thing and that was so cool. It may also be a similarly small note or acknowledgement of something that you did wrong and want to course correct. It doesn't have to be this massive moment of because I think that we almost give too much credence to those really big, powerful stories of, like, we did the wrong thing, we lost a big client, and I acknowledged it, and, like, wow, way to go, amazing leader. But every day there's probably things that we could be doing to say, hey, you know what? I didn't like the way that I reacted when you said this. Just want to acknowledge, I think there's a lot of trust that can be built by exemplifying the Moritz stories of the world, where they might not all be podcast worthy, but they are huge for building trust.
I really love it. And I would extend it to, in order to do that, you have to be present.
Mm.
So the awareness and being in the moment. Often we lose so many opportunities to do that because our head is to the next meeting, to the next email, and we're not really connecting with people by looking them in the eyes and saying, I'm here with you, I see you. Ah, what a fantastic Friday. I missed you. I'm so glad you're back.
It's good to be back. Happy to, be on to what feels like the last stretch of our 99 publications here. So,
Oh my God, yes. So, as I look at the numbers, this was episode recorded 71. So we have 20 to go, and then our journey will be completed.
fantastic. Well, I hope you have a great weekend, Nadia. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please find us on Spotify, follow us on LinkedIn, give us a 5-star review, and we can't wait to be with you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.